welcome to Talking Point. Now, it's been nearly a month since the government announced measures to cool the red-hot property market. From initial feedback, the measures have had some effect, particularly reducing the loan limit, the maximum amount one can borrow from the bank, to 70% from 80% for buyers who still have an outstanding housing loan. Together with requiring buyers to put up larger cash upfront of 10%, these measures effectively made it harder for those who own one property from buying another at the same time. Now, measures specific to HDB flats included having a minimum occupation period of 5 years for every flat bought, and disallowing those who own private property from buying an HDB flat. So did these measures have the intended effect? I have with me MP for Bishan Toa Payoh GRC, Mr. Hari Kumar, property analyst with Jones Lang LaSalle, Dr. Chua Young Liang, and senior manager at HSR Property Group, Mr. Alistair Tong. Now, welcome to the program. Hari, thank you. The measures to deal with HDB resale flats, did they have the intended effect? Are your residents happy?
Well, by and large, the feedback has been very positive. The policies are really designed to helping first-time owners. So what we have is now more than 16,000 new flats this year, up to 22,000 next year. And together, that's a Toa Payoh plus. We have 7,000 new DBSS flats, 8,000 EC flats. We've allowed those earning between 8 to 10,000 to now buy a DBSS flat with a subsidy. And we are discouraging those from entering into the HDB resale market who wish to speculate or invest. And that creates lower competition or less competition for those who want to buy a flat. So overall, a shorter waiting time, more choices for genuine home buyers. I think that's a positive move.
First-time buyers. Okay.
First-time buyers.
Yes. Numbers aside, the HDB resale market, do you think the HDB resale market should be treated like a private market and not a controlled market? Yeah.
I would think not. Primarily because in the first place, HDB housing is a subsidized flat. And if you go back to its fundamentals, it's meant as of a public good nature and should not be treated as purely a private market. In some form, it is
a hybrid form.
Yes, a hybrid form of two. So it requires perhaps a little bit more control than, say, a fully private market.
But does this create distortions? I mean, surely it does create distortions in the market.
Unfortunately, it does. Any kind of intervention by state or public or even private institutions does distort the market's full function. But that's when our understanding that the market performs perfectly, which is not the case. Most of the time, market do fail at certain points, and certain policies are needed to twitch and adjust it to behave the way we want them to.
Alistair, have you seen an impact in the HDB? Do you see an immediate impact in the HDB resale market?
Well, the immediate impact in the resale market was not so much of the price, but it's more of the volume. The volume of sales have definitely came down a little bit.
Transaction numbers have come down.
Yes, transaction numbers have came down a little bit, but not prices. I mean, sellers are a bit more realistic now, knowing that they lost a certain amount of potential buyers that will possibly come to them. For example, permanent residents that own homes in their native countries, right? They are eliminated from the picture unless they're willing to sell
their own property,
whatever. Yes, exactly. So that's one part of the potential customer base.
So you're saying transactions have come down, demand is still there, but maybe not as high as before?
Demand is still there, but a lot of them are still thinking, so what should I do now? Should I sell my property? Should I buy a HDB flat? Because, you know, you can't have the best of both worlds now.
Okay, how about another uniquely Singaporean phenomenon, the cash over valuation? Has that come down?
Cash over valuation, well, I wouldn't say that it has came down per se, but what happens is that sellers now know that, or rather it is our job as agencies to educate them that they have lost a certain amount of potential people that's coming to look at your unit. And you have to be a little bit more realistic in order to, you know, market your property at this point of time.
Okay, let's talk about some of the unintended consequences of these speculative curbs, which is that now with the minimum occupation period, it will be harder for upgraders to buy their second property. You need 30% of your flat valuation or property valuation that you can pay on your own, whether it's cash or a combination of CPF. So what happens to this group?
Well, I think we've got to look at it in perspective. The minimum occupation period has been increased from 3 years to 5 years for the resale flats. 5 years is really not that long a period. Now, if you think about it in the context of HDB being a genuine home and a person wanting then to upgrade to another home, then 5 years is really not a long time. And the 70% only comes in, it doesn't come in if you are going to sell your first house. In other words, it's a 70% only for the second mortgage. So if you're upgrading,
yes,
you're still entitled to 80%.
You will have a time lag and a time gap.
Yeah, and the new regulations allow for the time gap. So long as you produce evidence that you're going to sell your first home, you're still entitled to your 80%. So I think it's important to bring back the rationale for the policies, which is really to help genuine home buyers. I think
But an upgrader might say, I'm a genuine home buyer. Why do I now have to wait 5 years? Because if somebody had bought a property, let's say earlier this year, with the intention of maybe staying 2 years before moving on, this person would now be caught.
Well, that's the thing. Different people have different needs.
Yes.
So it's really a question of where you draw a line. I think 5 years is a fair amount of time. It's not a very long time. And if you're considering to upgrade, you'll obviously need that kind of time in order to build up your finances and so on and so forth. So really it's a question of being financially prudent. You upgrade when you're financially ready to do so. I mean, Alistair raised the point that people who are undecided whether to buy are now wondering whether they should buy.
Yes.
But for a genuine home buyer, that decision has already been made. So it's really not intended for them.
Yeah, in addition to what Kumar has mentioned, right, what happened is that when these buyers want to upgrade, it's perfectly fine. It's like the measures is set to maintain a stable and sustainable real estate market in Singapore. Right? It is not to prevent them from upgrading. But the thing is, when they intend to buy a property at this point of time, they have to think very, very clearly, where do they stand in 5 years? What kind of space do they need? They have to really
What is
put
a
that.
genuine home buyer? Is somebody who is preparing for retirement and wanting to cash out on his private property to downgrade, also, or you know, trying to shore up his retirement fund. Is that person not also a genuine home buyer?
I think there are valid cases. I think the concern right now in the market is perhaps it's an initial reaction to policies. From 3 years, you shifted to 5 years, your MOP period. So that seems a bit long, but after some time, when the policy becomes understandable in the market, then it's just another part of your equation that you work into it. So yes, for a genuine upgrader, downgrader, it doesn't make much of a difference eventually. It's about working your numbers into your timeline into it, that yes, I'm going to dispose of it, downgrade, and monetize my assets and use it for my retirement.
But being in the industry for so long, do you all think there is concern also that the government could anytime change the policy depending on how the market goes? And that would hold back people's decisions.
Well, just before I answer that, I just wanted to make the point that the 5-year temporary ownership period was already existed for new home buyers. So this is just to equalize those in the resale market.
Yes.
So 5 years is not a new period. But I don't think anyone wants the government to be rigid about its rules. I mean, it has to look at what's in the interests of the people. And that's a fundamental question. And then to shape and tinker with the policies as time goes on, as circumstances change.
Okay, we have to go for a short break right now. When we come back, what impact will the changes have on the private property market? Stay with us.
Smart enough to consider different trading platforms. Visit saxomarkets.com.sg, the choice for intelligent traders.
This is unlike any car you've ever seen before. Because no one has ever thought this way about a car before. This is power and efficiency. This is strength and lightness. This is an interior that exceeds the promise of the exterior. This is the all-new Jaguar XJ. The stunning result of taking a very different road.
Until the race is won, until you know how proud we are to be in Singapore and a global partner of Formula One. Until then, we will not rest.
Shouldn't every car use a performance fuel? At Shell, we've used what we've learnt on the racetrack with Ferrari to bring you Shell V-Power with friction modification technology designed to deliver more power in any type of engine. So whatever you drive, fill up with Shell V-Power. Shell V-Power, designed to improve performance whatever you drive.
Now, welcome back. With a slew of measures to curb the market, it appears speculative demand for resale HDB flats is softening or has softened. Is there also a similar effect on the private property market? Yang, what do you think? I mean, when we talk about upgraders, you usually upgrade to a private property market, 9-year lease, you know. Has there been an effect on the private property market?
Well, in terms of status quo numbers, it's not showing through yet, but because the policy came in August the 30th, numbers are not showing through, but anecdotally, there are evidence that some of the buying demand has kind of softened, especially in the mass market level. The transition, the upgraders demand has cooled off as a result of the policy measures that we've seen so far.
Alistair, you deal with people who want to upgrade all the time. What are buyers telling you? Are they happy? Are they happy with the new policy? How about those who are caught?
This is a very good question, because this is something that we get all the time. They ask us, should we buy? Right?
Should we buy? Yes.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's needs. It's about needs. If you are buying for your home stay, like just now we were discussing about, you know, what is a genuine buy. And
yes.
in my personal opinion, when you say a genuine buy, you're buying for your own stay. You are living in this property. It's not an investment property. You're not leasing this property, right? These people have an immediate need to buy, so they have to.
So were they badly affected? Or, you know, have you got cases of people who find that they can't now because of the measures?
Right.
I mean, how, you know,
Okay,
what are some of the concerns?
For example, lately we got to know a retiree,
yes.
right? He owns a private property, and he was thinking of, because he has a surplus in the CPF,
yes.
and he wishes to utilize it to purchase a HDB flat so he could stay there because his kids are all grown up, they have their own families, they have their own homes.
Yes.
Yep, he wants to downgrade to the HDB flat and lease his private property so he can get some income, you know, for his expenses.
Yes.
But now he's stuck. He can't do that anymore, and he was quite upset.
Harry, what do you say to people like that? I mean, they're trying to monetize their property value in the long run.
There are going to be conflicting objectives and priorities. I think the government's priority should be to help first-time genuine home buyers. I think that's the first priority. And no doubt, for those who are looking at property as more of an investment tool or a speculative instrument, then I think it's no different from any other investments out in the market, and the government really owes no duty or shouldn't make it a priority to help investment in property or speculation in property. So let's work on what should be the priority class, the priority group, and then the measures should leave it to the market to sort itself out for others.
Well, let's talk about property and its role. Is there still a function of a property to be an investment?
Perhaps I can pull the discussion a bit back into earlier discussion in terms of what Mr. Kumar said. I think the fundamental issue here today is really about the definition of public housing. Is that an investment good, or is that really a commodity? Is it an investment commodity? Okay. And that then affects the policy that we have today. Is the government right to introduce such policies in controlling the public housing market, or should they have stayed away? And do you treat it as a fully private market?
I mean, if you say public housing is for basic needs, it's for first-time buyers and to fulfill that need. I mean, that's the obligation the government gives to basically every Singaporean. You can own your flat, right? So this is consistent. I personally see that this is consistent with the policy, whatever policy they have. But what are the unintended consequences? And then for people who want to use property as an investment, is it a good idea?
If the definition of public housing is for public good, then you should not be using it as a commodity.
Property in general. I'm not talking about public housing. Because now, because these measures have a knock-on effect on the other sectors of the market.
Sure. I mean, the objective is to help every Singaporean own a flat.
Yes.
And at the same time, and over time, you want the flats to appreciate over time.
Yes.
So Singaporeans are more financially secure. So you can't do anything in the property market, whether public or private, to depress prices. And that's clearly not in anyone's interest. At the same time, you need to ensure that the rise is a sustainable one, and you cannot allow people who want to invest or speculate to then distort the market. And I think that's the danger.
Okay, so when is the call made that it has become a bubble? What are the signs and symptoms where you actually say the government will step in because it's now becoming a bubble?
Well, I think the experts are better placed to answer this question. But number one is, of course, affordability.
Yes.
If affordability is starting to go beyond reach, then you want to take steps. And number two, whether the property prices are rising really above the rate of the economic growth. And then you can see...
Okay, let's separate the public housing market completely from this then. Is it, when you talk about a bubble and bubble affecting private property, even though there's a knock-on effect from the demand from the upgrading market, I mean, what then would be a definition for a bubble? I mean, do you see that government was acting too quickly or too harshly or for the private market?
Well, I think property bubbles are hard to define. First place, to even see it, usually you know a property bubble after it's burst. But the fact that we're talking about it today, of course, shows that something is not quite right. And as Mr. Kumar said, this is all about affordability, where the price movement has escalated above your real economy to your income level. And I think there are signs, in fact, earlier, before the policy came in, as early as the second quarter or first quarter of the year, we've seen private prices moving ahead and ahead of your real economy, and that's where the danger lies.
Right.
If it runs out of steam or it affects the asset inflation, then the return of the real economy is being jeopardized, the total growth and expansion, then that becomes an unhealthy experience.
So has it slowed to a level which is sustainable now?
It has actually, in fact, come down, but not necessarily sustainable yet, I mean, my regards. I think
so you think there's still more room for the private property market to come down?
More long-term sustainable, 2 to 3% is what I think should be a sustainable level. But you're seeing about 5%, 4% right now, which is not necessarily that healthy.
Okay, so Alistair, how about you? I mean,
actually, another one main reason why people are investing in property or purchasing property at this rate is also probably because bank interest rates are really, really low. Right? They are really, really low.
Stock market is too volatile. It's a long-term investment.
And like, if you can lease an investment property for a 5% rental yield and you're only paying about 1.25% interest, that's a good deal. That's a really good deal.
And there's a real danger in that, because you cannot make a purchase of such a large asset on the assumption the interest rates will always remain low. And the assumption that you will continue getting the same increments every year or the bonuses every year, which you've always obtained in the past.
Right.
And I think we need to watch that.
So perhaps there was too much liquidity, too much easy access to cash, loans.
Absolutely.
That is also probably the reason why they want to decrease the loan to value, so as to know that these people that are purchasing these properties do have cash reserves, so that they don't get in trouble.
Well, all right, so it seems like the consensus seems to be that prices have to moderate and come down more? I'm sorry to
specifically because if policies are targeted at the second property. It's not at the first property. So the general buyer still has the ability to capitalize on the low interest rate, knowing in mind that in the long term it's likely to rise. So,
All right, thank you all for joining us today. Now, home ownership is very much ingrained in the Singapore psyche. It's part of the Singapore dream, upgrading as Singaporeans move up in life and enjoy the capital appreciation of their properties. So any measures to cool or boost the property market are usually seen in this context, and some say are a political tool. Now, the government needs to strike a balance between ensuring young couples can afford their first homes and not overacting on the market, resulting in the fall in property values of those who already own homes. So some have said the government was acting before the issue causes too much unhappiness on the ground. Now, if you have a view to share, email us or post them on our forum. That's it this week for Talking Point. Join us again next time, next week, next Sunday. Good night.